Welcome to What is Going On for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Times flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. If you've ever wished for a foolproof method of uncovering your destiny or assessing the connections and compatibilities between you and those you care about, stay tuned. For in 1998, astrologer and author Robert Camp discovered a secret ancient method of determining people's destinies, which enabled him to make successful predictions about many people in the news, including Michael Jackson, Martha Stewart, Woody Harrelson, Kobe Bryant, Bill Clinton, Ben Affleck, and Jennifer Lopez, and many more. Since then, he's written 10 books that reveal the secrets of this ancient science to the public, 2 of which, Cards of Your Destiny and Love Cards, have sold over 100,000 copies. Robert Camp joins me now to share how the secret science of numbers can unlock the mysteries of your life, your relationships, and your destiny. Robert Camp, welcome.
Thank you, Sandie. It's great to be here. Great to see you again.
I have to say that I owe your cards 2 of the worst years, most painful years of my life. Because of the cards and because of the love cards I was checking out the relationship between me and somebody else and trying to make a decision whether I should follow this and move across the country. I did. I had 2 very painful years before I left the relationship, but they were probably the 2 most pivotal years in terms of understanding and growth. So bittersweet.
It's very interesting, we can't control at all who we're attracted to. We have no control. It's a completely unconscious mechanism. And yet those people that we're most attracted to, I have found, are the ones that are going to bring us the most spiritual growth and the most transformation, even though they might be really, really painful and difficult. If there's something there that needs to be looked at in ourselves, those relationships help us to see that more than anything.
Yeah. And it took me about 8 years to really process that and realize the gifts in it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had one similar to that where it was 7 or 8 years of suffering and processing it before it dawned on me what I was meant to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's uncanny. I mean, these cards, and what I don't understand, the Greek philosopher Pythagoras believed that the universe was made from numbers, and hence mathematics are the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. What I don't get is how mathematics is the key to unlocking all this information about our lives and our relationships.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, we're talking about the common deck of playing cards, which is the world's best kept secret, hiding in plain sight. Nobody stops to think about the cards, and a lot of people get involved in tarot, which is completely different. But the common deck of playing cards is so mathematically connected to the cycles of the earth that it's stunning in how it's just a symbol of our calendar, of our cycles that we go through. You look at the cards, you have these 52 weeks, and you have 52 cards in a deck. You have 13 cards in each suit. You have 13 lunar cycles every year. The word month came from the word moon. There should be 13 months in a year. And if there were, there would be exactly 28 days each. It would be really beautiful. But we, society changed it around, whatever. But then you have these four suits, and you have 4 seasons. You have red and black for day and night. And then you take all the cards in the deck and you add up the numeric value of each card, ace being a 1, jacks 11, queens 12, and kings 13. And you add up the entire deck and you get 365. No other card system does that. This is the original one and only card system that was ever created. We don't even know where it came from. All ancient civilizations claim to have invented the cards, which tells you that it came before all of them. The first book ever published about the science behind the cards was published in 1894, and he said they came from Atlantis. And they were kept secret throughout this whole dark age period that the earth went through. And then he was instructed to bring it back to light there in the late 1800s.
So how did that person, come across it? Was it a channeled information?
He was a homeopathic apothecary. He was a mathematician. He was the world checker champion, I think, 3 or 4 years. So he was very brilliant. But he didn't have any inkling this would be his destiny. But he was actually in the Civil War here in the U.S., and he was on guard duty one night, and this man came out of the shadows, and who he almost shot, and told him that you're going to bring this ancient science back to the world. And I think he handed him a book, like just to get started. And he says, I'm not even going to live throughout this Civil War. All my friends are dying. People are dying left and right. He said, no, you're going to survive the war, and you're going to go on to bring this knowledge to the planet and bring this back to the planet. So he would even, his name was Olney Richmond. And he kept some of his clothes from the Civil War, where he showed that bullets just went right through his hat or right through the legs of his pants without hitting him, how he came this close to dying but didn't. And after the war, he was given more information, and then he started teaching and using it. And he did some amazing things. There are several reported accounts. Reporters would go to his temple. He had a temple in Grand Rapids, and then he had one in Chicago. They would go to his temple for like a little tour, and he would hand them a sealed envelope as they walked in the door. And he would say, around 8:00 p.m., we're going to do this little demonstration. And the guy said, okay. So then 8:00 comes around, and he has the guy take a deck of cards and start shuffling them and cutting them right on the clock at certain times. And then he says, now he had like a zodiac cloth that has, 12 houses and the sun in the center. And he said, well, now just take the deck and put 4 cards in every house and 4 in the center, just at random, whatever you want to do. And then he would say, okay, now when I give you the signal, roll these dice, and whatever number comes up on these dice, you pick up the cards in that house. And the guy would do that. He would pick up the cards in the house, and he says, now open the envelope and look at your cards. And in the envelope will be a little note that said, if this guy performs this certain thing at 8:00 p.m., he will pick up the cards, and these are the 4 cards that will be showing in this house.
Wow.
And he did this several times. There are several reported accounts of this. I have like copies of published articles in newspapers where reporters reported on this. And it was all done mathematically. It wasn't done psychically. It was done mathematically. He had access to, he published one main book called The Mystic Textbook. And you can still get it to this day. You can buy it. It's really hard to understand. It's very complicated. But there was a lot of things that he never did publish. He had books of information that never really got published. But we wish we had some of the stuff that he had,
It's extraordinary. I just, numbers for me are quite a frightening thing. I was absolutely rubbish at maths at school. And I could never get algebra, give me English and I was fine, but maths, it's always been one of those things that's attracted me and repelled me, because I can't get my head around everything connected with mathematics. It's too big.
Yeah, well, the math in this system is not so complicated, really. I mean, there's a little bit, but it is mathematically based, because obviously all the cards have a number, but there's also the suit and the meaning of the suits. And we also use planetary positions. We have, when you look at a yearly spread, as you know, you have cards in 7 different, you have actually 17 cards to look at, seven positions. The year is divided up into 7 periods, starting on your birthday. They're each 52 days long. Here's that 52 again. It's funny how 52 goes into 365, or actually 364, exactly 7 times, which is the number of days in a week. Everything is it's just so connected to our reality that it's stunning, really. I mean, we have 7 holes in our face, actually in our head. We have 7 holes in our head. There's 5 visible planets with the sun and moon, which makes 7. The days of the week are named after the 5 visible planets and the sun and moon. And the cards, if you take the 13 cards in each suit, the center card in the middle of the suit is a 7. So 7 is a magical number. It's throughout this whole system. So it's numbers, but on a more esoteric approach. It's not just math. It's not algebra, that's for sure. You know what I mean?
And it's not numerology.
No, well, it actually has elements of numerology. As a matter of fact, the second book that I know of that was ever published about the cards, it's called Sacred Symbols of the Ancients, and it was published by these 2 ladies, and one of them wrote a famous book on numerology, Your Days Are Numbered, Florence Campbell. So, but there are 2 different schools of numerology, and this is aligned more with the school that she used, and I can't remember which one it was, Chaldean or
Chaldean. You've got Chaldean and Pythagorean.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one that she actually, because I'm not really up on numerology. But there is, I mean, numbers are pretty easy when you think about it. Like ace is the first number, right? So it means a new beginning. It's very simple,
But does that mean then that anyone who is an ace is going to constantly have new beginnings?
It means that the ace is always passionate about creating something that wasn't there before.
That's true.
Yeah. You're an ace of spades. I'm an ace of diamonds. That's my second card.
Yeah.
We were busy as a child. I mean, we were going right out of the gate. We were like, what am I going to do? I want to do some stuff,
Yeah.
All aces are like that. They have to be doing something, So but then you have the ace and it's all alone, right? And aces kind of like to be alone sometimes, but when you evolve out of the ace, you go to the 2, which now the ace is no longer alone. They have somebody with them. So 2 is all about relationship in the cards, And then you evolve out of these. Everybody's cycling through these numbers, really. And you go from the 2 to the 3. Like you have a 2 and you're really happy, but then you look and you see somebody else walking down the street. And then 3 is creativity. It's variety. It's, and people who are 3s are really creative and have all kinds of ideas. They never run out of ideas, 3 people. Like they never get stuck because they always get an idea how to get out of it. And they're the artists in the deck. They're the writers and the artists and so forth. But then they have a lot of fear. So then it evolves into the 4, which is very stable and very happy and secure and foundation oriented. And 4 is like the house. It's got 4 sides and everything's blocks. It's like all organized. It's all, routine. Everything is, all 4 people are like that. They love routine. They like organization. They're good at organization and these kind of things. But then you get tired of being a 4 and you feel like the house is like a prison. And then you evolve and you're a 5. And now a 5 wants to travel the world and they want to get out of the house. They ain't going back in the house for nothing. They don't want to get married because that means they're stuck in a house. They want to just be free because it's all about freedom. So see, this is how the numbers evolve. So it's numbers, but not like doing a lot of math. It's just understanding the nature of the numbers.
Yeah. But do you find, I mean, with all your knowledge, and you've been steeped in this now for what, 3 decades or
30
so?
years.
Yeah. That it becomes a bit of an obsession, and everything you do, you're kind of looking at the numbers?
Well, no, I don't obsess over, like, I don't look at my cards for every day. There are cards for every day of your life, but I don't look at those. I look at the major themes going on myself personally, because my spiritual path now is more like letting go of mental structures, even though I'm teaching this, because it's a step. This is a step to self-understanding. Looking at your birthday and your patterns, then seeing the cards come up in your life and watching your relationships and seeing how you are, it creates a structure within where there's self-understanding and self-acceptance. And I think that's extremely valuable. And it takes people a certain distance on their path. I think, though, ultimately you have to let it go. You can't be bound by it, you know. And there's really no way to 100% predict what's going to happen next, because with the cards, there is a variety of expressions for every card. Every card can be expressed on any number of levels. Okay, I'll give you an example. The 7, which is a magical number, can bring you the best results, and it can also create the biggest problems. And never at the same time. You can have like a 7, and it's a challenge. Like, okay, I've had a problem come up. I'm really worried about it. Things look really bad. And then with a change of attitude, the whole thing flips around. And all of a sudden you're in a beautiful, perfect universe. You're a 7 of hearts. So you've experienced this. That's your second card. And you've experienced this in your relationship life. Yes. You have had these experiences of great challenge followed by a breakthrough in completely selfless love. Is that true?
Yes.
I mean, I can, without even knowing you, I can say that because I know what your birthday is.
Yeah.
You know, I just know that you've had that. So that's an example of how the cards can be on different levels.
Do you believe that we choose at the date of our birth and the time?
Yeah, I believe that happens between lives. It's not something that we that our conscious mind has any access to. You know, like we can believe that we do that now in this lifetime, but this happens before this lifetime, and we don't remember what happened when we're in between lives. I mean, some people do. Some people have had NDEs, and they see exactly what happens between lives, and so that's kind of rare. Most of us are just, here, and we don't remember why we chose it, but we have to assume that we're exactly in the right place, that we have the right parents, the right childhood, I mean, I'm from a family of 7 children. We had the same parents. We grew up together. We were only, like, from the first to the last child was only a difference of about 8 or 9 years. So my mom was like busy making babies every year. And yet as adults, we're just really different. And it's like we had different childhoods. How do you explain that? We're not all the same,
Yeah.
It's because we each bring our own individual karma into that, but we have exactly the childhood that we need to take us from where we were to the next level in our spiritual development. That's my belief anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us how you discovered the cards.
Well, I've always been, you and I had this talk a little bit when we did the show about your favorite books. I love that because I love books. So it was such a great show. I love the idea that you have of doing that. I think it's awesome. I've always been seeking. When I was a child, there was a lot of unhappiness in my childhood, and I used to think, what's the key to happiness? I really want to know. That's the way I phrased it in my mind. What's the key to happiness? I don't know why I came up with those words, but that led me to all kinds of books. And I seem to find it seems like I could only find it in books. I couldn't find it at church. I mean, I even read the Bible, part of the Bible when I was a kid. And I was like, these church people have it all wrong. They don't even know what they're reading. I'm reading it and I'm getting a whole different picture here, you know. But I've always had this strong interest in spirituality, and that led me to moving into a yoga ashram when I was 23 years old. And I was a celibate for 5 years practicing yoga. And while I was there, I heard that one of the women there was doing astrological readings. And I had never heard of that before. I didn't know you could do an astrology reading. I didn't know anything about that. But hearing that, just something ignited in me, something from a past life, because I immediately had to know everything about it for some reason. Just hearing that somebody was doing readings with astrology, I was like, I don't know. I just was taken with the idea. And I went right down to a bookstore and just looked through the astrology books and just picked up one and brought it home. And it was just about the North Nodes. It was like a very small segment of astrology. But I began looking up all my friends, what their North Node was, and reading them in the book. And that was the beginning of it. And after a year or two, I started doing readings, astrology readings for my friends. And then a friend handed me this book, Sacred Symbols of the Ancients, which I mentioned earlier, and said, hey, you'd like astrology. I think you might like this. Check out this book here. You look up your birthday. I looked up my birthday. I'm a Queen of Diamonds. And I read this chapter on the Queen of Diamonds. And I was like, oh, my God, this is so negative. This book is this woman must be mad at everybody. She's so negative. And I threw the book down, and I was like, a week later, I'm like, that book was 100% right on. And it blew my mind because I had just come from astrology, right? So you have to know the time, date, and place of birth for astrology. There were 8 birthdays that have my card. And how could it be accurate for 8 different birthdays? It just blew my mind. But there was my life on the pages of that book in great detail. And so I finally, when I found the copy of the book right away and got it. And that led me to finding a teacher in Los Angeles when I moved there about a year and a half later. And then he taught me the rest of the system. He was dying of AIDS, I think. I didn't know he was dying of AIDS, but we found out later. But he had written a book too called What's Your Card? His name was Arnie Lean. And I studied with him for as long as I could. He was so sick that he couldn't even hold classes that much, you know. It was hard for him. And then after he died, there was a book that he was writing that would have been like the Cards of Your Destiny book of mine. He never finished it. At his funeral, I talked to people and offered to help finish the book, and they were all just so they were so greedy and just controlling, you know. And to this day, they've never published his book. His estate is there's so much conflict surrounding his estate that they, you know, so I just decided I'm going to write it myself. And I went out and wrote it, and I felt Arnie Lean was with me when I wrote it. I felt him over my shoulder, and that was the beginning. And in the beginning, I was nobody heard of his system, you know. And I wrote this book, and I called it The Atlantean Oracle. Well, it was a bad title, really, because nobody knew anything about what they were getting out of the book. So I had to go around from one bookstore to the next, convincing them to carry my book. And the book was photocopied and spiral bound. So I started out really small, you know, doing like 100 books at a time. And I was binding them myself and all this stuff. And, you know, it was very, very slow going. But I had also been a programmer, a computer programmer. And I saw that this system was perfect for putting into a computer. And so I did that, and I used that to print out the spreads so that people could see their yearly spreads in a really easy to look at way, because the way I learned it is somewhat complicated and easy to make mistakes. So, I mean, as soon as I discovered it, as soon as I had that class with Arnie Lean, I knew that this was what I had been looking for. I'd been looking for my life's purpose for at least 10 years and praying. And I had done different things, and I was pretty successful at everything I did, but I knew I hadn't found that thing. And when this appeared, I realized this is it. So I just put myself into it wholeheartedly and just kept going with it. It's been fun. The whole path has been fun. I haven't really struggled. There were struggle times, but mostly because I had a sense of poverty that I had to overcome in the early years, which I wasn't even aware of until I was ready to be aware of that.
I think these modalities, that give you the opportunity to know yourself are the most important gifts we've been given. Astrology, numerology, the cards, human design, gene keys. I think this is the most important work we can do.
Yes, I agree. I mean, you can take something like this or astrology and you can use it for anything, right? You can use it to gamble. You can use it to hurt people if you wanted to. You could use it to manipulate people if you wanted to. So it's just a tool, but it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't designed for that. It was designed for spiritual development, because it was kept secret from the common people for centuries. It was only in the hands of the priests, and it was a sacred science, and it was a secret science. That's how it was kept, So, but now we're in this age where everything's out in the open, and this is the age of Aquarius, and Aquarius rules astrology and all these sciences. So now it's out in the open, and there are people using it, and there are people abusing it, but it's there. And those of us who have a spiritual inkling, it's like a wonderful tool.
It is indeed. Tool. Well, we're going to take a short break now, and we'll talk about it more when we get back. You're listening to What is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and my guest today is astrologer Robert Camp, who is the author of the internationally best-selling books Cards of Your Destiny and Love Cards. And we're talking about how and why the ancient secret science of numbers can unlock the mysteries of our lives, our relationships, and our destinies. We'll be back with more from Robert Camp after this break.
Om Times TV.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of Om Times flagship radio show What is Going On, and as an author, editor and 13 times book judge who's read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors, I'm constantly asked what's really worth reading and what's not. So I created the No BS Spiritual Book Club to help you save time and money by picking the brains of discerning names who have walked this path before you. There's no catch, no fees and no BS, just an ever-growing library of 10 best spiritual book lists from some of your favourite authors and teachers, plus free book excerpts, audios and video interviews with people like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., David G., Lee Harris, Mark Nepo and more. From well-known classics to hidden gems you've never heard of, it's the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to enlighten your journey of self-discovery. So why not join the club? Get inspired and save money at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Everything that we do, we can do in a contemplative manner through the art of contemplation, you can use the gene keys in a really powerful way. Gene keys is basically the code book of life. In the gene keys, the book is made up of these 3 levels: shadows, gifts, and siddhis. And the journey is through those 3 levels, kind of unpicking of the shadow states, the releasing of the gifts, and then the embodying of this higher consciousness called the siddhi. And the siddhis are very exalted words. And it's not like we kind of suddenly are all these exalted Christ-like beings, but we have flashes and illuminations along the journey. And the more we get stuck into the journey, the more illumination comes to us, because the more we're releasing the light from in these codes inside our DNA. So all those revelations are inside us. So the contemplative way is the inner way.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back, Robert Camp.
1 second.
There you are.
Yeah, but this camera doesn't want to stay. It wants to look over there for some reason. Hold on. Here we go. My dog was crying at the door. I had to let him in. Sorry.
Good. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Examples. I mean, one of the interesting examples, I think, you did readings for Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, and we all know that they, had a relationship many years ago, and that ended, and now they're married, and that always fascinates me. Would something like that show up in the cards, or would
yeah.
it would show up in the different years? Would it?
It absolutely, the cards, I didn't actually do readings for them. I did readings about them. I did not actually meet them. I've done readings for celebrities, but not those 2, just to be clear. The cards can, it can show you, like if you, let's say you met somebody and you want to know, oh, I really like them. I wonder if they're going to be in my life or not. It'll show you that. If they're going to be in your life, they're going to show up there. They're going to show up in the cards, because you have these cards for every period of the year, and you can look ahead into the future and you could see, is there an influence? I've done that many times in my life with relationships, and it's always been right on.
How far ahead can you look?
You can look all the way to your death.
And beyond for other people?
Well, by the way, we never predict anyone's death.
No.
I'm just saying that the cards go until you die. We consider the average lifespan, or the lifespan, to be about 90 years old. 90 years. We basically base it on that. But you can go, if you live longer than 90 years, your cards are there for the years, all the years that you have in your life.
But could you look at the cards for a country like America, for the time that it was incorporated, if you like?
Well, yes, you can. Anything that has a birthday, you can do readings for. The thing is, you got to know what birthday to use. Like the country, what would you use? Would you use the Declaration of Independence? Would you use, and then, we've used July 4th, 1776. And I'm not sure if that's the right birthday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, and then the other thing about doing a reading for a country, it's not a person. It doesn't have a success.
It doesn't have autonomy, does it?
It's harder to do. We've done it with companies, though, because you can definitely look for days, for example, that are more fortunate for business. Okay. And I have helped a lot of business clients pick days for incorporation and also pick relationships with other corporations and other people. That kind of stuff you can definitely do with the cards. And it's quite successful at that.
Have you looked at the cards for our presidential candidates?
Yes, I've looked. Yes, I think it's very instrumental to look at the candidates and look at their basic natures, and then you can look in their cards and you can see success or failure. But you have to keep one thing in mind, is that we don't really know who actually really wants to win. Sometimes you think you do, and you might be right, but you also might be wrong, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know all the mechanisms that are happening. Sometimes people losing is a win for them, and we don't know it. They've made a deal of some kind. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So there's stuff. So you can look in an individual's cards for signs of happiness or success, or failure and disappointment or loss, and you can look for those. Okay, and you can see, okay, well, I think this is going to happen, or this is going to happen. I remember I was asked to do. There was this Olympic person in China. He was a hurdle jumper, and he was like really well known in China. And they asked me to predict how he was going to do in the Olympics, and he was favored to be like winner or one of the top people. And I looked in his cards, and I saw blah blah, just like nothing, like no excitement, no loss, no win. I just saw like And what happened was, he went into the race, and he lost on the tryouts, on the warm-up tryouts. He didn't even make it to the finals or anything. And it turns out he didn't want to win. He was tired of the whole thing. Now, I looked at his trainer's cards after that. His trainer had really strong, disappointing cards, because his trainer really wanted him to win, but he was on his way out. But nobody knew that, until later. So it's like, this is the kind of things that when you look at somebody's cards, you're looking at what's going on inside of them, what they're experiencing, not the external. It's like, okay, it's not a death card you see. It's, oh, I left on a new adventure, or, oh, I lost all my stuff.
Yeah.
It's whatever the death is to that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So so you can do some predictions for celebrities, but you have to know a little bit about them. You have to know, like, are they really in it to win it in an election? Like when George Bush went up against Clinton, George Bush Sr., his heart was not in it. I was hoping he would win. I was kind of a Republican back then, but I was like so disappointed, because he wasn't really. I could tell he just didn't really. It wasn't trying. And well, later I looked at their cards of him and Clinton, and there's a special spot that you can be in like twice in your lifetime. It's called the pinnacle year. And when you're in the pinnacle year, it's always a year of great change. You can either step up to a great new height, or you can step down from a great height that you already wore. So Clinton stepped up and Bush stepped down. Okay. They both were in the same pinnacle year. It's the top of the whole deck, and you've reached the peak of the mountain. So Clinton stepped up to the peak, and Bush stepped down from the peak. And honestly, I don't think in that particular example, I think Bush didn't want to win. I honestly think he was done, even though he only had one term,
Well, I'm sure everybody wants to know if you can give any insight to what's going to happen this year, but I'm not sure that is actually the right thing to be doing.
Well, there's no definite winner that I can see. I can see both of them, like, So let's talk about it. Like, okay, what would Bush? What would Biden? What would he feel like if he lost? Okay, how do we know that? What would the crazy man feel like if he lost? Would it be a loss for him? Or would it be a gain? Because, he's always looking out for himself.
Yeah.
He's a 3 of diamonds and an ace of spades. He's very selfishly oriented. And it's all about him. He's the greatest, Trump this, Trump that, I do this. And so, but what, if he got a better deal out of losing, which I don't think he would in this particular case, but if he did, you might see success cards when he actually lost.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
It was really interesting this year because he had the worst cards for legal things this year. Trump did. He had really bad cards. And then he went into another period right after that, and he had the greatest card you can have for legal things. So he went from the worst, where he was like totally, and Biden is so good at legal things. Biden's behind all this stuff. He's behind all of these legal problems. All of these cases that are going against Trump is from the Biden administration. They're you can tell, because that's what Biden's good at. He's good at legal stuff. His birthday is one of those birthdays. It's King of Hearts and a 4 clubs and a 4 spades. He's got his power is in using the legal system. That's what he's good at. Trump is good at like creative stuff and creative business deals and that kind of thing. So between the two of them, they don't really have they don't have a relationship between them that makes one stronger than the other, but sometimes they do. Sometimes cards have that, 2 people will have that. One will be just really like you can guarantee one person's birthday is going to win against the other if they compete in anything. But they didn't have that kind of relationship. But you can see that Biden is using all of his cards, which is legal stuff, to squash Trump. And he's been pretty effective. I mean, Trump has just been like surrounded with legal problems.
Deluge. Yeah, absolutely.
Deluged. But see, Biden, neither one of them have any sign of sort of like real integrity. You understand? So we don't really have, we have JF Kennedy Jr. And he seems to have integrity. But he doesn't have a party, Yeah. So, I'm probably going to vote for Kennedy because I think, if I have the choice between this Biden, who's a corrupt, I know he's totally corrupt, and Trump, who is like a crazy egomaniac, I feel like I don't have a choice. So, I would go with somebody else that seems a little more sane,
Yeah. Yeah. Integrity every time. Your books have been, you've written 10 books, haven't you? And you've published in Russian, Chinese, other languages. There's one book that interests me, Cartus Spiritus, the hidden and deeper meaning of the cards in the time-based spreads. So is there information in that book that doesn't appear in the cards of destiny?
Yeah, like when you look at, let's say you have in your cards, you have let's say a 3 of spades and Venus, okay, and it has in the cards of destiny book will be a small paragraph about what that means. So in the Cartus of Spiritus book, there's going to be an entire page on the 3 of spades that gives you a much deeper understanding of what that energy of that 3 of spades is all about. And other ways that it can manifest in your life, including the spiritual aspects, which aren't really covered that much in the cards of destiny, because I wrote the cards of destiny to be appealing to just the broad audience, and in the broad audience of the world, everything is good or bad. Either I'm having a good day or I'm having a bad day. There's no spiritual thing like, oh, I'm having a bad day, but I'm really learning a lot. There's none of that in the broad world. And then you know what I'm talking about. So the Cartus of Spiritus goes into that depth of all the cards that show up in your yearly spreads or your weekly spreads or your 7-year spreads or your life spreads, the time-based spreads, and gives you a more in-depth understanding of how that card shows up and how to understand it so you can get more out of it.
Did you ever look at your cards and identify, that you were actually born to do this, that this was going to come your way no matter what?
Well, Back in 1991, I had been doing the cards for, I don't know, maybe 4 years. I had read something that there was a blurb in the Sacred Symbols of the Ancients book. There was a blurb about this science came from the Order of the Magi. Okay. So I thought, well, that's cool, but where is the Order of the Magi? Are they around? What's going on? So I just sort of forgot about it. And then one of my fellow students called me one day and she says, I think I found the Order of the Magi. I said, really? I said, yeah, give me a phone number. I was living in LA at the time, and I called this number, and this old man answered the phone. And I said, is this the Order of the Magi? And he said, this is the Magi, all right. And so they were up in Paradise, California, which was about a long drive from LA. I think it's about, I forget, something like 500 miles. I can't remember. But I started talking to them, and they invited me to come up, and I was going up there, and prior to my going up there, like, let's say I was going up in a couple of weeks. So I had an appointment to drive up there and visit them in a couple of weeks. So before that happened, they had a woman, there was a woman in the group there. She was the channel. She was called the Channel Rose. And she had daily contact with the Magi on the astral plane, the Order of the Magi on the astral plane. And they had been given instructions by the Order of the Magi and the astral plane that I was to be initiated in the order and given all of the levels. There are like 5 or 6 levels, the highest being the Grand Master. And they had told me that I had done this in a past life. They even told me who I was in a past life and where I had learned this knowledge, because I learned it so fast. It was like amazing. I had to lie to people when I would give classes and tell them I'd been doing it for 10 years. I'd only been doing it like a year, but I didn't want to seem like a charlatan. So I would say I was doing it for 10 years, but I was initiated. And then I realized that, okay, well, this all made sense to me. Okay. That I learned this before and that I was supposed to do it in this lifetime. And they gave me the invocation. I felt like that was the connection I was looking for, because before then it didn't really have that deep spiritual connection that I knew it was part of it. But now I felt like, oh yeah, and this Order of the Magi up in Paradise, a very small group. It was really just 3 people, and they had channeled all these books, and they were amazing books, and they didn't have any knowledge of the cards. He had been a member, Frank had been a member of the order, the same order that Olney Richmond was part of earlier, because he was 80 years old at the time already. But he did have a couple things, a couple small things, like the formula. There's a formula that you can learn in your mind where you can get a birthday and you can figure out the card of the birthday. And he taught me that, which was that was really cool. I couldn't believe it. So that helps you to, like, when you meet somebody on the street, to know what their card is without having to look in a book. It's a mathematical formula. So that was, I think that answers your question.
Does the order still exist?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, we have, I am continuing with the order right now. We have a group that's slowly growing. We have about 30 people right now. We just decided to really bring it back in just like 2 years ago. So it's just getting started.
What is their purpose?
Our purpose is spiritual development. It's not really focused on the cards per se or astrology, even though we're all card people and astrologers. Our discussions that we have on our meetings are more about our spiritual growth and how we're dealing with the challenges that our life brings forward. It's been a very enriching group. I mean, we all come out of those meetings, which we have like 2-hour meetings once a month. We come out of those meetings on Zoom just feeling really inspired every time. And we have
So,
we have me with my spiritual background, and we have other people in the group who have a rich spiritual heritage and background, who are more mature, and it just combines really beautifully together.
so you're going to get inundated now with requests from people wanting to join.
Well, yeah, we're going to make it available to people. Right now, the only people that are in it are people that have taken we have a 10-month card science training program, certification program. So up until now, we've only allowed people that took this training to join, but we're going to open that up with other people. We're going to open that up so that other people can join if they have that deep spiritual urge to connect like that.
Yeah. So what's next for you? I mean, you've written the books, you've made this available to people online as well. You teach the classes. What more can you do to further this?
Well, I'm 70 years old. I don't have a lot more on my to-do list. Right now, I'm just thinking more about getting everything in order and having it run so that my family, my wife and my son, will be taken care of. I feel like I've done enough. I could write one more book about parents and children and their cards, which
That
would
would
be a
be,
great book to have.
yes, that would.
If I can do it, if I can do it in a way that's not so daunting a task, like I have an idea, I'm working on it. I'll probably get that book done.
I
And
think you should. I think
yeah,
you should.
yeah. I mean, it's just amazing with kids and parents,
Yeah.
how much the cards can tell you about your relationship with your child and your child themselves, what's really good for them, you know, what kind of a personality or what kind of a career or whatever they might be best in, and all those things,
Yeah.
instead of like parents like trying to force their kids into being a certain way, and so forth.
So, in the 1 or 2 minutes that we have left, is there anything that you can tell us? I mean, we're in this incredible time of transition. We all know that. We can all feel that, and it's so obvious. Is there anything that you can or want to share about the time ahead? It's going to be, I think, both very chaotic and also very rewarding ultimately.
Well, yeah, that's the way you put it is very, very good, because that is the spiritual approach, right? So the world around us is getting more chaotic year by year. I mean, have you noticed it hasn't gotten less chaotic ever
Mm.
since you've
No.
been born? And it's funny, you can read things that people wrote like 100 years ago, and they'll say the same thing we're saying today, like, wow, the morality is just declining and things are just getting worse. And this is what is happening in the world. This is the age that we're in, and it keeps bringing us back to ourself. It keeps bringing us back because we don't have any control over all of that. All we can control is what is right here in front of us in the here and now. So the way I look at it is, it's the best opportune time to sort of like, you can actually transcend all of this. We can transcend this by coming into what is real for us right in the moment, which is always beautiful. I mean, yeah, there are hard things we have to go through, but those are things where we have these mental attachments to certain things, and we have to work those out. But actually, the situation is actually pretty good at any moment in time. You can say, how are you right now? Oh, I'm fine. You know, there's a thing that Eckhart Tolle quotes. He says this famous Buddhist teacher would just say to his students, what in this moment is missing? you know, just asking yourself that,
Yeah.
what is lacking in
Yeah.
this right now? And, I think it's a lot about having gratitude, for what we have, focusing on I think I think all this external chaoticness just keeps bringing us back to the place where we do have control, you might say. You know,
Yeah.
The sphere of our control is on what are we doing with our life right now, here and now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed. It's some people are having a great deal of anxiety and fear over what's happening. I personally cannot see it that way because yes, it's uncomfortable, but I see that it has to change.
And it keeps getting more intense every year. I mean,
Yeah.
it used to be would have like one mass murderer or two every year. Now we have like 10 a day.
Yeah.
It's like it's
Yeah.
insane. And
Yeah.
so you can count on it's going to get worse and worse in that regard. And yet they say about this age, which is the age of Kali, that it's the best age for spiritual growth.
Yes.
So, and it is possible to transcend all of this, to transcend
Yeah.
the fear and the concern about the future that we have.
And if we want to evolve, that's exactly what we have to do.
Yes, we have to
Indeed.
get to that place where the true self, there's no lack, there's no fear.
Yeah. Robert Kemp, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Sandie. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Robert Kemp's books, Cards of Your Destiny, Love Cards, The Big Book of Money, and more can be found at his website, 7thunders.com, and that is the numeral 7. Where you can also sign up for a free e-course, purchase a personal reading, read his articles, and listen to his Mr. Destiny radio show, which we didn't get a chance to talk about. That's 7thunders.com. That's it for this week. All episodes of this show are available as podcasts on all of the major podcast platforms, including Times as well. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. Thanks for being with us today. I'll be back with another edition of What is Going On at the same time next week. Till then, goodbye from me, and thank you, Robert Kemp.
Thank you, Sandie.